So then we went to the deja vu experiences that people have, you know, where you meet somebody, you've never met them before, and yet you think you know them. Or you go into a situation, you walk down a street and you go, I've been here before. What's going on? There's a strong feeling that you've been there before that you can't explain. Or you seemingly have made arrangements to meet somebody somehow, right? Many of us meet somebody and we go, I'm sure I've met you before. You seem very familiar to me. Yes? You'll be surprised how often that happens with myself and Mary. Everyone seems to remember us from some previous thing. What's actually going on is this. Here's us, here's me. When I go to sleep at night, my spirit body leaves my physical body and I am awake in the spirit world. And I'm having experiences. And I have the ability to either to go anywhere on the earth that I wish, as well as anywhere in the spirit world where my condition will allow me to go. Now, for those of you who weren't here last week, your soul condition determines where you can go in your spirit world. And we can discuss that with a little more detail later. So when I'm asleep, I'm still awake, basically, is what I'm saying to you. And you're still going to different places on earth and in the spirit world, and you're still talking to people, you're meeting new people and having new experiences. Now, often what you'll do is you'll meet a completely new person, and then you'll decide, oh, I like you so much. I would love to be able to catch up with you on earth in our awake state when we're actually in our physical bodies. And so what you finish up doing is trying to make some arrangements to do that. And then when you meet the person, you go, you seem very familiar. And the reason why is because they are very familiar. You've probably been talking to them many times in the spirit world before you met them in your awake state on earth. Does that make sense? So very simple explanation as to what happens with deja vu experiences. In the spirit world, you can also make arrangements to visit people. You can make arrangements to see places that you're going to visit in advance. So for example, this is what many of you do when you make a plan. Let's say if you made a plan to go and visit Australia, let's say, the other side of the world. And you decided that you were going to arrive in the city called Sydney and you were going to stay there for 5 days, but you don't know where you're going to stay. Well, in your sleep state, you can actually go to Sydney and check out the places where you're thinking of staying. Does that make sense? In your sleep state. Now, a lot of times you won't remember that in your awake state, but many of us do this very regularly. Then when you make your booking online to book at a certain motel and you feel good about that motel, there's a very high likelihood that you've already visited the motel and checked it out. So you've made it, you feel good about it, and then when you arrive there, you go, boy, it seems very familiar to me for exactly the same reason, because you've already been there. Right? You see, one of the main problems I feel we have on earth is we don't understand what happens when we go to sleep. We don't understand that you're still actually alive and doing things when you're asleep. And it's only your physical body that is resting. Your physical body is resting. And there is a cord, this silver cord that goes between your physical body and your spirit body, that when your physical body starts to have physiological functions that needs your attention, the spirit body is drawn back to the body. So for example, in the middle of the night, you have to go to the toilet, you have to go to the bathroom. Well, your spirit body feels that sensation coming from the physical body, and then it draws it back and you wake up, you go to the bathroom, go back to sleep, bang, you're back in the spirit world again. Does that make sense to everyone? If we understood more about our sleep state, we would understand many of the truths about the spirit world actually, but also many of the truths about our day-to-day existence. There's so much we learn in our sleep state as well. But many of us are afraid to find out. Sorry? If we can just wait for the microphone to come. There's just a microphone I want to get the sound.
Oh,
That's okay.
When I go somewhere and something bad happened, what has happened then?
When you go somewhere on earth or in the spirit world?
Yeah, or meet people that are good for me. Why does that happen then?
Well, I have a strong belief that every person you meet is good for you.
Yes, I have something to learn, of course.
Yes.
But it can be hard anyway.
Yes, so your soul, so here's your soul, here's your physical body, here's your spirit body, and both of those bodies are connected to a soul. The soul looks after both of those bodies, and that is you. This soul has injuries. What we would say, I would say things in it that are out of harmony with love, truth, or humility, and that will attract events that cause one of those three things to be, you have to learn something about love or truth or humility in the interaction. And most people try to learn it intellectually. No, you have to actually learn it at the soul level. So you have to actually, it has to be a feeling.
Through my feelings, yes.
Through your feelings, yep. If we just wait for the mic. You have to wait for the mic, people. Might pay to just leave it on.
Yeah, I had once a dream, and I woke up with my heart, almost a heart attack, because I saw in a dream somebody I loved was getting killed.
Yeah.
Then and then I thought, God, I must learn to control also my dreams. Otherwise, I'm going to affect it also in my body. Just I wonder how it's possible that you can
firstly,
control something of your dreams that don't affect your body too.
You don't have to learn to control anything.
Okay.
So you've got to give up this idea that you have to control things. You don't have to learn to control anything. It's an experience you have. A dream is one of two different types of experiences. It can be either a real experience that you had in your sleep state, or it can be an emotion that you have that you need to deal with in your awake state. So if I have a set of dreams where I'm always afraid, always being chased, you know those kind of dreams? Always afraid, always being chased around by people who look like they're going to harm me. Now that could be happening in your sleep state, or it could be just an emotion that you need to work through in your awake state that you're avoiding. In other words, a fear that you need to work through in your awake state. Now, if you have a dream of a friend dying, right? And some of us even have dreams of ourselves dying, yeah? Then that is a fear that you have in your awake state that you're not addressing, that you're not dealing with emotionally. And your dream is telling you that you need to address this. If you want to become more harmonious with love, truth, and humility, you will need to address this emotion. Does that make sense? Or it could be a real experience. Often you will know the difference. You will actually feel the difference that inside of yourself, whether it was a real experience or whether it was an experience to trigger you emotionally to help you address an emotion that you're avoiding. Now, you'll notice, I don't know if you've noticed, but most people do notice in their life that when they're going through very stressful stages in their life, they often dream a bit more. Right? And this is because there's emotions. The dreams are trying to help you address the emotion. They're trying to help you work through the emotion that you've been avoiding. So, and it's interesting, sometimes, many of you may have also noticed this, that sometimes you have a dream that tells you you've worked through the emotion, where you have a different response than you had before. So you might have a series of dreams where somebody's chasing you around every night, and then after a while you have a dream where somebody tries to chase you and you just turn around and say, I don't want to do this anymore, and they'd stop, and that's it. And then you wake up from that going, wow, that was different. And it's telling you actually that you've already addressed some of this fear that you have to the point where you can actually confront the person who's been chasing you. So that you have dreams that tell you that you're actually solving your problems as well. Right? You also know, usually most of us know more in our sleep state than we know in our awake state. And so I don't know whether you've ever tried this, but sometimes you have a question that puzzles you in your awake state. And so you just ask, well, when I go to sleep, if I can wake up remembering what the answer is. And lo and behold, I don't know if it's happened to you, but it's happened to many people that I've met and myself, where you wake up and you go, I know the answer straight away to that question. Yeah? And that's because in your sleep state, you do know the answer or you've investigated the answer. And when you woke up, you now have the ability to exchange information with yourself in both states. And in fact, the way God intended life to be is that you remember your sleep state seamlessly. In other words, when you lay down to go to sleep, instead of actually going to sleep in your mind, your physical body sleeps, and you would remember it, your spirit body lifting out of your physical body, going through the spirit world to the place where you spend a lot of your time, and you'll remember all of your experiences in that state, and then you'll feel the feeling and remember coming back to your spirit body and then becoming awake again in your awake state. That is your capacity. You have the ability to do that. Most people don't do it because they are afraid of seeing everything that they see in that journey. Yeah? And because they are afraid, fear is very, very different to these three qualities. Fear stops a lot of things. Fear shuts you down a lot. Fear shuts you down from remembering what happened when you were asleep. That's the primary thing that shuts you down. But that explains the deja vu experience.